Brainiacs all over planet Gaia. What's up, everybody? Friday night discussion interview. I say just discussion. I'm calling this coffee with my buddy Paul, Mr. Paul Wallis. I'm gonna tell you what, it's gonna be an interesting night. I've only got Paul for a little while. Everybody, he's got some things going on, no doubt, but we are going to just hammer him with all kinds of questions right roll off the bat. The Eden conspiracy. This is the genesis, was the creation. You guys know him here on The Matrix. He is our friend. He is an international best-selling author. He's got a series you guys are very much well aware of here on this show. He's got the Eden series, and that series consists of a number, and I do mean a number of different books. Everything from Escaping from Eden, The Scars of Eden, The Echoes of Eden, and now, like I said, working on he's already got The Conspiracy of Eden, and he's got another book up his sleeve. Brainiacs, don't go anywhere. You are not going to want to miss this broadcast, this podcast. Share this all over the place. Let's get her done, man. On the other side of this, my friend, Mr. Paul Anthony Wallis.
What do you say, Brainiacs? You guys ready? It's time. It's showtime, brains. That's right. It's Matrix time. And it's go time. Welcome aboard, everybody. Let's go. We're going to talk about ufology, conspiracy, controversy, and anything and everything that we can get into tonight. Let's go. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Get up, Brainiacs. Yeah. It's definitely your show. Your show, and we appreciate you for being here. Buckle up, everybody. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, Brainiacs. No doubt about it. What's up, everybody? On the other side of this, I got my buddy, Mr. Paul Wallis, unmuted. Again, I've only got him for so long, so we're going to just cut to the chase and say, I am so glad that you're with me, Paul.
G'day, Matthew. It's great to be with you again. And g'day also to Matthew Jr., who is just off camera to the side there. So it's great to be with you both.
He was. He's like, you got Paul on, man? He's like, Dad. I was like, yeah, Paul's with us, bro. He's busy. You got some things going on. Again, I did not mean to time. I don't know, time, date. You guys had something come up anyway. I'm excited to talk with you.
We will make the most of the hour that we have. And just to follow on from our greetings just now, it's such a wonderful thing, isn't it, when you can have conversations about the kind of topics we're into within your family, because so many people are isolated when they switch on to these kind of topics. But to be able to talk father and son about these things, and as I do with my kids, we are so blessed. We're so lucky to have that, aren't we?
That we are. We talk about that a lot on our podcast, our just channel here, and I've noticed other broadcasts do the same thing, right? And they talk about being like I said, being isolated. My wife don't do it. My they're not into it. Oh man, dude, I could not. Your wife, thank God, dude. You're an author of some very controversial conspiratorial stuff, and you got one hell of a supporting wife, and it's amazing.
It's amazing how that happened, because probably as a lot of people listening in today know, my background is in Christian ministry. So my wife and I were in that world for many years. And then I started a deeper level of research into the root meanings of keywords, and it totally radicalized my worldview. And by an amazing coincidence, my wife was also on a rapid journey of unlearning and relearning, all of her own. It wasn't because she was studying Hebrew texts with me. She was studying something completely different. She started listening to people with near-death experiences. And from month to month, we would come together from time to time and say, do you know, I've been thinking this, I've been wondering about this. And we'd realize we were on absolutely parallel tracks as our worldviews changed. So I'm very lucky to have that.
That, again, that is a key thing to make, that will, especially today, that will make it or break it in a marriage. I'm just saying, you see it a lot. The wife believes this, the husband doesn't support that. It's vice versa. And you're like, and again, man, I'm lucky, you're lucky. A lot of these guys up here in the chat, we're all blessed to have that support.
Yeah.
Let's for those that don't know your background, Paul, I want to share right real quick, because I want to let everybody know that we've been having problems with your audio. It's just for some reason. But so if you go bye-bye, you go bye-bye. I want to share real quick this screen, okay, which is your latest baby. And that is the conspiracy, the Eden conspiracy.
That's right.
Give us a rundown, Paul, of what is smashed into this book. Would you just give everybody a rundown?
Sure. Well, what I'm known for is arguing for paleocontact. That's the theory that our ancestors had contact with ET visitors in the deep past, that we even colonized in the deep past, that our ancestors may have been adapted by our visitors in the deep past. I come from a background in Christian ministry, and I've reached these conclusions through study of the biblical texts and the source narratives. And what I argue is that the knowledge of paleocontact is embedded in the Bible itself, as well as in world mythology, indigenous narratives all around the world. And in the Eden conspiracy, I show that the Bible has enshrined this memory of paleocontact, the memory of contact with many different kinds of entity. And then in certain books of the Bible, from the prophet Jeremiah through to 1 and 2 Kings, through to the book of Ezra, it actually records the process by which the narrative was changed. And those running the show shifted the narrative from one of paleocontact to one of Yahwist monotheism. And so today, when people read the Bible, they think they're handling a book that's all about God. And certainly God and the idea of God is in the book. But the earliest stories, I argue, are about something completely different. They are about contact with other species. And the changing of that narrative is recorded for us through the books of the Bible themselves, if you read it closely enough.
No, I want to be I know you gave me permission to like restream, as long as giving you credit and linking back to your page or to your YouTube channel. But I want these guys to do this on their own. I truly want to give them, a lot like you, give them breadcrumbs and say, don't just believe what I'm sharing you and everything's in the book. Please do, and you're good for that. Giving them tidbits and saying, don't just believe what I'm saying, but research what I'm saying. And
that's exactly right.
And that's what I'm saying. The Fifth Kind is a great channel. Your own channel on YouTube is an amazing. The books. I can't imagine what all you put in it. I learned a lot about what you just said. the things that the root of the words. You're the fellow that is it Mario?
Mauro Bellino.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little bit of his background. He was also a translator for the Vatican, correct? And
yes, he translated interlinear translations for commentaries approved by the Vatican. And so his work was very, very precise. He would go to the original Hebrew texts, and rather than give an interpretation, just give a rendering, word by word, line by line, as to what was going on in the text. And he did this for the Edizione San Paolo. He wrote 17 volumes for them. His work is highly credentialed, highly regarded. I had never heard of Mauro when I wrote the first of my series, Escaping from Eden. And it was only as I was finishing off that book, I started hearing his name. And I thought, oh, wow, this is great. There's this Italian scholar, very well regarded, whose knowledge of Hebrew cannot be faulted. And he has come to exactly the same conclusions that I have, that many of these stories are stories of paleocontact.
Those, I don't want to say gods, okay? Those entities, beings, these beings that from the heavens, space in which came. Let's just go back to someone who I'm now like really, even you're like, Yahweh was not a good dude, was he?
No, that's right. And that fact is actually spelled out for us in the scriptures. But people get confused because we're used to hearing that word as if it is a name for Almighty God. But if you go to the prophet Jeremiah, when he describes Judaism as it was in the 7th and 8th centuries BCE, he says that the tribes of Israel of that time remembered with thanksgiving beings like Asherah, who had nurtured their ancestors in the past, but they remembered Yahweh very negatively. And they had thrown off his laws, and they spoke very disparagingly of him. They thought he was a bad thing. Now, Jeremiah tells us this. There is the fact. There is the information. He says, Asherah is honored on every high hill and under every green tree, from every fortified city to every garrison town. But then he adds, as it were, a little phrase of his own, isn't that awful? The moment the narrator says, isn't that awful, the reader feels they have to agree. But if you can separate Jeremiah's opinion of what was going on with his information about what was going on, he's just told us that in the 7th and 8th century BCE, Jewish memory was of many beings, and they remembered Yahweh as a violent, brutal conqueror who they did not enjoy being ruled by. And you get to 1 Samuel 8, you get to the point where the elders of the tribes of Israel got rid of him. And they said, we don't want your governance any longer. We're going to have human kings for human society. Right. So the whole story is there, but there's a little bit of a spin on it that came in the final redaction, as the narrator wanted to say commemoration of these other beings is idolatrous and worship of Yahweh is good. But that's just the top layer, the final spin. The information is still there as to what Judaism was before that great reform.
Right. The thing I like the most about you is because my life and your life kind of go hand in hand. For 30 some years, I myself was buried into that narrative of it is blasphemy to think of an outside of that box. Right. I mean, I'm talking like Southern Pentecostal church. And yeah, you know, what would help me to break out of that, I call it an indoctrination of the spirit, is learning the things to go back to the root of the story. And I've learned that through you, learned that through your friend, the Vatican scholar, and the other narrative. And this is the thing that I see catching on right now. Is people want to know, Paul. They want to know our history.
Yes. There is an appetite, I think, on people right now that I've not seen in my lifetime before. and it's across the generations. Certainly, people from their 30s through to their 80s, I hear from people in those age ranges every week saying, I no longer believe what I did 5 years ago. I want to know what's really going on. I'm going back to the texts. I'm trying to find out what is the reality of the world in which we live. And this is not something I've seen before. So I'm very excited to hear that. And it's a great time, therefore, to be broadcasting as you are, writing books as I am, because there is a public out there ready to engage with these questions and to find new and different answers.
Whenever you first started to like really dig, okay, really dig, what kind of a shock was it to your system? Because I've got a lot of Christian diehard believers that it is the truth, the light, the way, and that is it.
Yeah.
You know, but so seriously, how did all of this happen for Paul?
Well, I'll tell you, I actually think that Christian believers have a head start on everybody else in coming to terms with ET contact in the present and in the past. They have a head start because if they are confident of the teaching of Jesus, they will see that there is a contradiction between the morality that Jesus taught and the morality of the Elohim and of the Yahweh character in the Hebrew scriptures. And that was the case for me. I knew all along from the time I became a Christian believer at the age of 17, there was this incompatibility. And the more I studied theology as I trained for the ministry, and then I became a preacher, and then I trained pastors in the interpretation of ancient texts, the Bible in particular, that incompatibility doesn't go away. You keep getting called back to it. You keep finding anomalies, things that don't fit. And so for a long time, I knew there was something else going on in the Hebrew scriptures that I needed to drill down into. And then there are little clues that there are non-human entities washing around in the text, such as in Genesis 6, where we're told about a hybridization that happened between these Bene Elohim, the ones like the powerful ones, and human females. It's a bizarre story all on its own. It's actually the summary form of a narrative in the book of Enoch, which you can find in the Ethiopian canon of the Bible, and it echoes in ancestral narratives all around the world. So I knew about that. But it was only a few years ago when I was really challenged by the colloquium that was convened by the Vatican in 2009. Now, I'm not a Roman Catholic. I work for the Anglican Church as an archdeacon. That's one down from a bishop. And I work for Pentecostal churches and non-aligned charismatic churches. So it's not like I hang on the words of every pope who comes along, but I couldn't help noticing that it was very odd when in 2009, the most conservative pope in my lifetime convened this colloquium, gathering of top theologians and scholars from around the world to discuss, and they made it public what they were talking about, the theological implications of contact with other civilizations. Great fanfare before, great fanfare afterwards, and the message was there's no issue. We shouldn't be surprised to meet extraterrestrials. We should regard them as brother and sister aliens. It shouldn't be a surprise because ETs are mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And if you didn't know they existed before, don't be shocked. It just means the Creator's been busier than you were aware. That was the message.
Right.
And we heard it from Guy Consolmagno, the senior astronomer for the Vatican, Jose Gabriel Funes, the director of the Vatican Observatory, from Monsignor Corrado Balducci, who was the Vatican senior advisor in paranormal ministry. They wanted this message out, and they wanted it out quite quickly. My impression was they were expecting some kind of a disclosure to be made by another authority. And they wanted to get in first to reassure the faithful that a populated universe is no threat to faith in Jesus. When they did that, I thought, okay, what's going on? And when the challenge was issued, when they said it's in the Old Testament and New Testament, I thought, okay, I'm going to do that work. I am going to go through the Bible again, having read it many, many times, because I thought, could I really have missed something as glaring as aliens in the Bible? I thought maybe they're talking about Genesis 6, the hybridization. Maybe they're thinking about this intriguing verse in John's Gospel where Jesus says, I have others who are not of this fold. What on earth did that mean? But when I got into the texts, when I started studying the root meanings of words commonly translated as God, so that's Elohim, Yahweh, El Elyon, El Shaddai, I began to realize there is an ET narrative in the Bible from start to finish, and that many of these entities who have been translated as God were something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
The moment I started reading using the root meanings, I recognized that the Genesis stories and other Old Testament stories are in fact the summary form of the Sumerian, Babylonian, Akkadian, and Assyrian stories. And those stories are not religious texts. They're not stories about God. They're stories about sky people, or what you and I would call extraterrestrials.
Paul, that run right there, growing up in, you're not much older than me. Growing up in Sunday school, learning what we learned, we all know, and I talk about it a lot. We were never taught about Lemuria, or the days of Thoth the Atlantean, so Atlantis was completely out of it. We never were taught about the Sumerians. We missed three. I call them cycles. We completely missed out on 3 cycles. So we were only taught about the Babylonians and the Egyptians.
Yes. That's right. Well, I wasn't even taught about the Babylonians. I mean, you would think that civilization began with the Egyptians from the education I got in school.
Right.
And then in church, of course, unfortunately, a lot of believers are encouraged to read the Bible in a bubble, never to read the source narratives from ancient Sumeria, never to read the Greek narratives, which you can then find sewn into the Bible. As soon as you read the Bible alongside other literature, you realize it belongs in a family of literature full of stories of paleocontact. And I think, sometimes I hear from people who are not very happy with what I'm saying. And from time to time, they'll say, I read only the Bible.
I hear it a lot.
That is not a boast. I should say you should be ashamed of yourself. It doesn't matter how high a view you have of the Bible. You might read that as the infallible, inerrant word of God. But if your views can only survive if you read it in a bubble and never read anything else, you ought to start asking serious questions. I think it comes from a theology rooted in some very negative, non-biblical doctrines that suggest there's no information outside of the Bible. Well, I'm sorry, but every time you go into hospital, you're acknowledging that's not the case. Every time you drive your car, you're acknowledging that's not the case. Right. There is information outside of the Bible, and it corroborates many of the biblical stories. It supports them and refines them, but it will also challenge many of the traditional translations. And my job isn't to debunk the Bible, it's to understand it.
Right.
I am not out here to attack the authority of the Bible. I'm saying go back to the texts, read them in the Hebrew, read them in the Greek, listen to what the writers really said, because there is a richness of information there. Might challenge your orthodoxy, might challenge your pet doctrines, but that is the source you need to go to and read it from scratch. That's where you'll find this earth-shattering information.
But Paul, that right there is what the church didn't want years and years and years and years ago, centuries ago, right? I think the name was Theodosius. Is that right?
Theodosius, the emperor.
Dude,
yes.
You got to remember the narrative that they were pushing for, the Judeo-Christian, Orthodox, whatever they were put, it was their way or the highway, literally. Tell them the story about that. Tell, please, by all means.
Yes, for sure. So, you use the phrase the Judeo-Christian view, and people
Mm-hmm.
immediately think, oh, I know what that is.
They know not
That's
what that is.
that's right. We think, oh, that's the theology I was taught in church. That's mainstream orthodoxy. And we forget that in the beginning, Christianity was a kaleidoscope of texts and doctrines and ideas and experiences. And then there was a process of narrowing down. So there were debates in which it was decided which church fathers were right and which were wrong, which texts would go into the New Testament canon and which wouldn't. And that's fine. You would expect that to happen. That happens in every religion. But things really ratcheted up in the 380s when Emperor Theodosius decided he needed to weigh in on a theological debate and settle some issues. Now, when he did that, two things happened. Firstly, it confirmed to everybody the feudal order that Christianity had now been sucked into. Because when he did that, he concretized a system where you've got God at the top alongside the emperor. And then you've got the bishops and the senators in the middle. And then at the bottom of society, you've got the priests and the people meekly paying, praying, and obeying. And you've got this top-down structure where the believers are told what is right and wrong. They're told what's going to be in the Bible. They're told what is Christian doctrine and what is heresy. And that's the first thing that happens. So effectively, the empire has hijacked Christianity. And in the artistic canon, you can see that happening as well, where Jesus is now portrayed in Roman military uniform, which means he's actually under the authority of the emperor, endorsing all the emperor's wars. Of course, that began with the Emperor Constantine, who asked his historian to rewrite the history of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in such a way that Jesus is endorsing the battle and endorsing Constantine's victory. It's told as the story of Constantine becoming a Christian. It's really the story of Jesus becoming a Roman, because he's now going to endorse every imperial battle from then on in. So that's all part of this pyramid structure concretized by Emperor Theodosius. But the other thing that happened was this, that if you didn't hold to that narrow orthodoxy, if you were still reading the Gospel of Thomas, for instance, or if you were still reading the books written by Marcion, or the unedited works of Origen, the father of hermeneutics, now you were an enemy of the state, because you were attacking the order and the cohesion of the imperial department of religion.
Their narrative.
This was understood so clearly that you couldn't contradict that narrative, that the texts that didn't make it into the canon, of which Theodosius approved, were buried in the desert to prevent them from being destroyed. And some of those texts didn't see the light of day again until the 1940s. So that's from 381 AD until the 1940s, buried to protect those texts from being destroyed. Now we can go back and read them and remember, oh my goodness, in the beginning, Christianity was this kaleidoscope of experiences and ideas, and it included affirmations of paleocontact, of contact in the present, of altered states of consciousness as a way of expanding our cognitive powers. Oh my goodness, it was a far more interesting picture in the beginning. And one of the things I hope people will do after they've read the Eden series is go back to the original Christian texts and realize that Jesus himself was hijacked by the empire and turned into a narrative of control and manipulation and fear of hell and hope of heaven. This is a total distortion of the original Jesus. And when we learn to reread the texts other than through the lens of imperial religion, which we now simply call evangelicalism or orthodoxy or Catholicism, then an altogether more exciting Jesus emerges. When you go to the reading of texts, it's an exploration, an invitation to explore, more exciting than anything I could imagine.
I now look at him as, I don't look him as, well, you know, I can't even say a savior. Truly he is, but on a completely different level. Okay. He's not, the word Jesus to me now is like, oh my God, this dude literally questioned the narrative and was trying to it wasn't trying to save your soul, but it was trying to enlighten you to there might, the main phrase is my Father's kingdom has many rooms, or what is it in my you know what I'm saying, that specific
my
phrase,
Father's house many rooms. Yes, that's
bingo.
right.
To me, after reading it, learning it, studying it, I now know that we are not alone, Paul.
No, we're not alone. We're not alone. And our ancestors knew this.
Right.
The Jewish people knew this. The tribes of Israel knew this. King Solomon knew this. This is why King Solomon not only erected the temple to Yahweh, but he erected the temple to Asherah and paid for priesthoods commemorating other powerful entities who had had a positive impact on the human story. So it was known, and it was part of the biblical knowledge. I have found in my research for the Eden series that these stories are in every culture, on every continent, in every age. And so it's really exciting rediscovering these and peeling back the layers of assumption and doctrine and realizing there's a whole exciting universe waiting to be engaged with here.
You and I don't see it as to question it, Christian or not. Label yourself as a Christian, label yourself as whatever you want to. I myself am just me. I am Matthew, right? You are not Paul Wallis. You're not in that box, but yet you still believe. I still believe in a source. Yes. Because even like Eric, I love Eric Van Doniken. I love Eric too, and he was the one with that probably was the tip of the spear for me when knowing and learning, oh my God, there's more to this place than with the Chariots of the Gods. Okay, that was that was probably the icing on the cake. Okay, for me, long time ago, a while back, and to now know that, and a lot of people don't know this, that NASA themselves have got patents on a damn wheel, right? That is in representation. You're laughing.
Ah, yes, from the book of Ezekiel.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
And they use that wheel. It's the omnidirectional wheel, patented in 1974 by Joseph Blumrich, because he, as a skeptic, went to the book of Ezekiel. He was challenged by Eric Von Daniken, who had been invited to come and speak to the Advanced Propulsions Unit of NASA.
Right.
And at the refreshments table afterwards, Joseph Blumrich, who was a senior developmental engineer for NASA, he said to Eric Von Daniken, I really don't think you're going to find technology in the Bible. The Bible's a spiritual text. You're looking in the wrong place. And Eric said, have you read the book of Ezekiel lately? Right. Joseph said, well, actually, no, I haven't. So he went away and did it with an engineer's mind, and he started drawing up schematics of what Ezekiel describes, and he realized full well it was technology. He wrote a book that argued it was extraterrestrial technology. He gets into the descriptions of the pilot and points out that in the Hebrew, Ezekiel calls him a human-like life form. Well, that gets sort of softened in translation.
That's touchy, ain't it?
And then he slaps a patent on the omnidirectional wheel, which is still used on remote rovers by NASA to this very day. And Ezekiel is just one moment where technology turns up. And the problem is that we've had 2,000 years of translators who for much of that time had no technological grid in mind when they came to those texts. They, just like Joseph, thought these are spiritual texts reporting spiritual phenomena. We will use spiritual language. But the great gift of the Bible is we still have the Hebrew text to go back to. Mm-hmm. And we can go to the root meanings, and we can hear about this pillar with fire and smoke that launches and lands vertically, and say, I think I've seen something like that. Or we can see something that flies using rotor blades. I think I've seen something like that. When the noise of the engine is described, it sounds like a waterfall. Yes, you're absolutely right. I've seen the space shuttle launch, and yes, it sounds like a waterfall. There's plenty of technology that the modern mind can recognize. We can read the arrival and departure of powerful beings and say, hang on, that's just described a wormhole. That's just described a portal. We have the opportunity to go back to the texts, listen to the ancients, and realize they're telling us about a very interesting period in human history when we were observing technology that was not our own, and we were being governed by beings who were not our own. And all this I open up in the pages of the Eden Conspiracy and the other Eden books.
Oh, bro, I gotta grab it. No doubt. I told you it's Christmas. I've got to give myself something. So, telling you, bro, that's on my list.
Great.
Going back, these guys know I share a lot. We, if you are not familiar with what is called 360cities.net, have you played with that yet?
I haven't. No.
Let me introduce you to my world. Okay. You're gonna want to see this. I'm gonna share this with you because we share this a lot here. Okay, so Paul, you're gonna want to bookmark this. I'm telling you, you're gonna want to bookmark this. I'm gonna just share this with everybody and you. So we all know the most famous place, right, is Luxor Temple, right? We're all familiar with Luxor Temple. Even Paul's very familiar with it, right? So everybody can see what we're seeing, Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can see you and I. These fellas here, right? These big guys right here. I am very, 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 very aware that these to me, these are Nephilim. These are giants. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Now, over here, what I want your input on is this big guy over here, this real ugly fellow with no face.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yep.
Remember, 360cities.net, okay? Because I want you to, this will indeed help you in your research with trying to look around at things that they have buried, things that, and you can literally just walk around all of these magnificent megalithic structures. I'm talking firsthand, look at them, read them. I see in my eyes, Paul, okay, massive, massive major technology. Do you see that little hole right there, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, look how straight these are.
Yes.
A human being, Paul, whenever they sit there, is literally only comes half to the middle of this block. These are massive stones, Paul. Have you been to Egypt?
I have, many years ago.
All right. So these things, you your own self know, these are massive, massive, that we ourselves even till this day could not do, could we?
Yep. The crazy thing, when you go to Egypt and you're taken to some of these sites, the anomaly is that the more sophisticated stone cutting and the larger blocks are all earlier.
Older.
And so,
right.
Yeah, they're older. And so you will see what we know of ancient Egypt, and then you'll see stuff that's been cut with diamond grade precision. I mean, we would use diamond grade cutting materials to do cutting like that today, and we'd still have a problem with moving the blocks around.
Right.
You ask, well, how did they do that? And the guides will say, oh, that's pre-dynastic. Well, what does that mean? What does pre-dynastic mean? Well, we don't know much about them. Who were the pre-dynastic Egyptians? If you research that, you'll be told that they were farmers,
gatherers,
bit of hunter-gathering, bit of farming.
Mm-hmm.
So where is the origin story for this technology? And why is there no evolution towards that technology? And where's all the equipment they use? So it's a huge mystery. It echoes around the world. If you go to Central and South America, you'll be asking the same question. Why is the earlier work more impressive and more precise? And where's the technology that did that? You can go to Turkey, to Anatolia, to ancient Armenia, exactly the same pattern, where you've got these larger, more precisely cut blocks below water level, at a level that would be above water no more recently than 10,000 years ago. So this is a global question. And then you pointed to the bloke with no face, and then the size of the figures. Again, this is a global question. Why are the ancient rulers portrayed as being 3 times the size of the human beings who were serving them? Did they really all come up with the same sort of symbology? Is it really just expressing importance? When we see Gilgamesh carrying a full-grown lion, and the lion is on the scale of a lap cat, and Gilgamesh is 5 meters tall, the guides again will tell you, well, this is to tell you how impressive he was. This is to tell you how important he was.
Paul, you and I know that back in that day, okay, I'm trying to watch the clock here. You and I know that back in that day, that if you or I, as a sculptor, as an architect, did not portray the God or the deity, Yahweh, the way that he was, you'd probably lose your head.
And the picture you showed was really a fantastic illustration, Matthew, because over here we've got someone who looks very human. And then right next to him is someone who doesn't. And you can find that all through Egyptian art. So how is it that we can say, well, that is an accurate depiction of Akhenaten, and the person standing next to him with a dog head, that's symbology? Oh, okay. And how do you know this? Well, it must be. And here's a point where our worldview and what we've been taught starts telling us what we're seeing, rather than we look at what we've got and then interpret it. And as soon as you compare this art with art from Mesoamerica, art from the Fertile Crescent, you have to ask, wait a minute, these things correlate. Things are being portrayed in exactly the same way. All these very, very tall beings have a handbag or a bowl and a pine cone with them. So what does that mean? If it's symbology, what does it represent? But the idea that we can say, take this as literal, take this as symbolic, take this one as literal, take this one as metaphor, we really need to start challenging.
Look at that. Look at this, Paul. This is Nefertiti. Okay. Look at she is below the knee, below the kneecap of this figure.
Yes, exactly. And if it was all about importance, you would not be allowed to portray Nefertiti at that height compared with the other beings.
No, sir.
She was at the top of the tree.
There is something that I've wanted to share with you quite some time that I don't have time to dig for it right now. But I want your expertise, and I want your eyes on this. I've shared this quite a bit here on the show. And that is, there is a depiction of you and I both know the names of the lineage, the names, how the names have changed throughout history, his story, the narrative, the agenda. There is a depiction on, I cannot remember which temple wall it is, that one of the larger deities, okay, you and I now, we know her as Isis, okay? She is literally showing, and everybody, again, knows that I've shared this, of a little bowl, right? She's holding a bowl with some kind of you're shaking your head. Are you aware of what I'm sharing here?
Oh, no, I'm excited. You keep going.
All right, but I'm telling you right now, you watch your inbox, because it's stages of creation. So if this ever hits big, you and I together will point this out to the world. On the wall, out of sight, there is a hieroglyphic that shows Isis. She is turned over to a deity, a figure, and he is giving her something. Okay? She is taking it in one hieroglyphic. And in the next, again, she is taking a syringe and sticking it in a cup, Paul. And the next hieroglyphic, you see steam or some kind of significance of life or creation, right?
Yes.
And the next thing you know, you see this little spaceship. I swear to God, you see this little spaceship. Okay? And then in her hand, in the very next hieroglyphic, you got the figure of a man crawling out of her hand. You can't make this up, Paul.
Yes.
It's in
No,
stone.
you can't make it up. You can't make it up. And it correlates with other images and other stories all around the world. In the Eden Conspiracy, I talk about a story from Papua New Guinea, where the story is enshrined in the numbers 1 to 5. And when you go to the root meanings of the numbers 1 to 5, it talks about people coming, interacting, and then they've got this symbol for a needle and a vessel.
Bingo.
What you just said. Hypodermic.
Here it is, buddy.
And then
right here.
And then they return. So it's spelt out in the numbers 1 to 5. It's spelt out in the hieroglyphics. The bowl represents technology, medication, genetic work, genetic adaptation. So I think, yes, bingo with what you've just said. That is the story. You can find it in Egypt. You can find it in Turkey. You can find it in Papua New Guinea. You can find it in Guatemala. This is the ancient knowledge. And this is the recollection of the story of the beginnings of human civilization as we know it. These very tall, advanced beings came and adapted our ancestors. It is there in Genesis 3. It's there in Plato. And the early church fathers I mentioned before loved Plato. They had no problem with his teaching about human origins. And I think the more we find these symbols portrayed around the world, the more we have to realize we are being told something incredibly important about human origins that relates to these very advanced, very large beings, who vestiges of whose presence we can find in terms of gigantic steps, gigantic thrones, such as you were pointing out earlier.
You see it. I know you see it, right?
Yes, that's right.
Paul, I the thing that I also want to point out to you, to everyone else, is these deities, these gods, these whatever they wanted themselves to be portrayed as, right? They've got more than one thing in common with you and I. But whenever they look at these massive statues, I want them to really, really realize that they've got a belly button just like you and I.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
They've got a belly button.
They are people.
That's right.
They may be more advanced. They may be from somewhere else, but they are people. And their stories are very often told that way. When you read the ancient texts, you're not going to find the word alien. You're not going to find the word extraterrestrial. They are people, but some of our texts will tell you where these people came from. Some of our archaeology will suggest where they came from. And in the Eden Conspiracy, I talk about Asherah, who's also very large. She could hold a full-grown lion like a lap cat. And finds have been made, particularly in Tel El Farah in the Levant, a site that's been excavated since the 1940s, that strongly suggest the Pleiades as the point of origin of some of these people who came and helped our ancestors in the deep past. Now, what you've just been talking about, Matthew, is where I'm going next. in the Eden series. So far, we've had Escaping from Eden, The Scars of Eden, Echoes of Eden, The Eden Conspiracy. In the next book, title reveal just after Christmas, I will be going to some archaeology in Anatolia. And I'll be going there with my friend Matthew LaCroix, and we will be looking at particular finds. Brian Foster will be joining us, Billy Carson will be joining us, because there's some really important archaeological finds that finesse the story you and I have just been telling. So that is all to come, and there will be a movie production of that work.
Excellent.
In the pipeline very soon. We are in pre-production, if I can put it that way, at this stage. So
Brian's always busy. Anytime I ever try to get I talk to Brian. So tell him that Matthew from The Matrix says hello, and next year, whenever he's not,
I'll do that.
Dude, he's busy.
I'm actually having my first face-to-face conversation with Brian Wednesday coming. So
he owes me, man. He owes me. He's been. I mean, we talked. And he's like, the way. What I've told my son and a lot of other people here. Even last week, I've told them. I'm like, I hope nothing happens to you or anybody else that's really, really, really exposing these archaeological anthropologist type stuff that nobody wants to talk about, because I don't know if you're aware of a fellow by the name of Damon T. Berry. Do you know of Damon T. Berry?
No, I don't think so.
I'll share his stuff with you a little later, and you can dig whenever you want. But Damon started digging and producing. He produced 8 series of movies, right? And he must have been going a little too over target, because I'm going to tell you, the last person to interview him was Jimmy Church from Fade to Black, and he fell off. He fell off the face of the planet. I mean, he's gone.
That is very sad. People do occasionally say to me, Paul, you're over the target.
I think so, bro.
Be careful. You need to be careful. But on the other hand, so much is out there at the moment because of the stoush between the Pentagon and Congress, that I think there's more scope at present than there's been for a very, very long time to discuss these things. I mean, certainly people will still be offended. Certainly you'll still have academic mainstreamers coming against New Thought. But I actually think there's more scope to explore right now than I've seen in my lifetime before. I can talk about a populated universe without being burned at the stake.
Right.
And so if I don't make the very most of that opportunity, then I would be ashamed of myself. So I take what you're saying. But I think now is a time for uncovering things. Now is a time for expanding what we know. And there are people in authority. It's not that every person in the Pentagon thinks the same thing, or everyone in Congress thinks the same thing, or everyone in the Vatican thinks the same thing. These are all communities of people, and there are people who are agitating for more disclosure and more exploration. And I say, well, that's the case. Let's push ahead.
Well, in closing here, Paul, because we'll limit. You'll give you an hour. An hour was plenty of time with you. I want to say this before closing, is for everybody to remember. Even Paul knows this. The Pentagon is there's people in the Pentagon that has went to Congress, and they're trying to get it out. Am I right or wrong, Paul?
Yes, you are right. You are right. I believe Thomas Monheim, who is the Inspector General of the intelligence community, is in a forward-leaning position in terms of more disclosure. You've got people like Chris Mellon, who can leak Pentagon footage of contact. He hasn't fallen off the face of the planet.
Right.
He is an ally in terms of those of us who want more disclosure. The fact that that hearing was allowed even to happen on July 26th of this year
publicly
is a huge coup. So I think we need to celebrate all those. I think the physicists who are being allowed to brief the press saying that they are working on metamaterials from UFO retrievals. Jack Vallée has spoken publicly about this many times now, and so has his colleague Eric Davis. Gary Nolan, when he's asked the right questions, will reveal quite a lot about that program as well. And no consequences. They haven't fallen off the planet. So yes, there are always going to be boundaries, and I'm always aware that men in black might suddenly turn up at my door one morning with a quiet word. But at the moment, there is more scope to unveil these things than I've seen in my whole lifetime, and I want to make the absolute most of that.
Well, I want you to stay around. I'm telling you right now, you are one of my favorite people, because
thanks, man.
You are literally, when it comes to this, you are doing what I want to do. I'm telling you right now, I am a very loud
Matthew,
person.
we are all on the same team, because you are getting this information out there as well. You've created a space where people can ask questions and explore territory that they couldn't at school or they wouldn't find in their local library. So we're all on the same team in terms of making conversations like these more and more mainstream. And the more we can do that and really dispense with old attitudes of giggle factor, ridicule factor, or even fear factor, the more convinced we will become that we are in a populated universe, and one where we don't need to move around in terror. We may have visitors who are not very nice, but we also have company who are here to support the progress of the human story. And I think this is a time when we need to engage more intelligently with that.
Me too. Paul, nobody, at this point, you're not even really an interview. You're just a friend here on The Matrix. Nobody comes to this show without saying something positive to everybody around the world. Please give somebody some good input, some good, your heart, and then I'll go ahead and cut you loose on the hour. But thank you for being with me, bro.
Couple of things. The message that Jesus toured with for the first year of his ministry, according to Matthew, if you go to the root meanings of the words he uses, he says, go beyond the mind, because the whole cosmic realm is available to you. And I think that's a wonderful invitation to explore who we are, what company we have, to explore what's possible. And I am also excited when I read original Christian literature, like the Gospel of Thomas, like some of the other texts that didn't quite make it into the canon. And they talk about the need to be, and you'll find this in the stories of archons, the need to be very deliberate about your emotional state. Don't let yourself become frustrated, go into a funk. Don't let that happen to friends of yours, because if you can be intentional about the energy you put into the world around you, it will bounce back to you. If every morning before you get out of bed, before you leave the front door, you make a decision about injecting positive energy into all your interactions, that will bounce back to you. And it's when we are in that happier frame of mind that we can think more freely, that we're less prone to being manipulated, that we can think more creatively, think fresh things, come to new ideas, new conclusions, and conclusions that can really free up the way you live and lead to a more expansive and enjoyable life. So that's my closing message.
Again, buddy, thank you. I appreciate you. Take care of yourself. Take care of that gorgeous wife. And we look forward to hearing what's going on, what's coming out, the next book. I used to give me a date.
Thanks,
give me a date. When are you gonna?
Yes, beginning of April. The next Eden book is out there. If you go to Amazon and Kindle, you'll find all the other Eden titles.
Okay.
And catch up with those before number 5 comes out in April.
Awesome. I will link it, everybody, in the description of tonight's broadcast. Paul, take care of yourself, and thank you once again for being with me, my friend.
Thanks, Matthew, and thanks for helping me with our tech issues. And I will look forward to our next conversation.
All right. Okay, take care of yourself, buddy. Right.
Bye.
All righty, everybody. Mr. Paul Anthony Wallis with me here on The Matrix Minds. And also it's called The Enigma. We're going over to Enigma. Seems like the powers that be don't really like the Matrix minds, the Matrix. But nevertheless, coming at you next year, 100% with Enigma, produced by the Matrix minds. We're gonna bring a ton of different broadcasters, podcasters, and again, my buddy here has got some amazing videos, documentaries, things like that. I've already got Paul's permission to stream his stuff. And again, this guy is absolutely mind-blowing when it comes to digging, searching for the truth, sharing the truth. And that's the thing. It's like, it's not really a secret anymore. It's not a secret anymore. So if you guys have any questions, check him out, Mr. Paul Anthony Wallis, my friend. Again, great series. The Conspiracy, the Eden Conspiracy is just one of his books, the Eden series. Everything that you need to find him, find his books, is linked in the description of tonight's broadcast. Take care of yourselves, Brainiacs. Take care of yourselves 100%. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you here on Monday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock West Coast Time. Good night, everybody. Peace out. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Good night.
Yeah. Let's do this.
One of the fastest growing talk shows on the internet. Radio show with welcome aboard the Matrix Minds. One of the most controversial conspiratorial shows on the internet, the Matrix Minds. And that's right. Buckle up, everybody. Let's go. Paranormal, huh? Conspiracy, huh? Ufology, hidden Egyptology, and anything and everything we can get our hands on. Let's go. Welcome aboard. The Matrix Minds. The Matrix Minds. Your show.
Take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole is. All I'm offering is the truth. Stay in Wonderland. All I'm offering is the truth. Stay in Wonderland. All I'm offering is the truth.
Hey everybody, Austin here with Colorado Custom Game Calls. Are you looking for a game call for your upcoming season? Are you looking for something unique? Are you looking for a gift for the hunter in your life? Well, look no further. We got you covered. At Colorado Custom Game Calls, you get to put your own twist on these calls. Whether it's waterfowl hunting, big game hunting, predator, or turkey, we got you covered. So be sure to hit us up on our Facebook and Instagram or on the web at ColoradoCustomGameCalls.com.
What is up, all my beautiful and gorgeous souls? I am Michelle Espinosa, otherwise known as the Shaman, through the Matrix Mind Media. So tell me, how many times have you wished that you had that special power of prediction? You know, to know what was going to happen before it actually happened and took place. To have some power and control over that situation before things came flying at you out of left field. The thing is, you actually can have that power. You can be aware of what's coming. Tune in to Astrology TV with me for Breaking the Cage. Every Sunday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Matrix Mind Media. And I will go through the astrology and help put you on the right course and get you back in control of your own life. Love you guys.
This CBD fluid is a whole flower fluid extracted from the cannabis flower. We don't use any heat, butane, or chemicals when we extract, so we get all of the components of the plant. All the CBD, CBG, CBA, all the terpenes, all the flavonoids. This allows our body to absorb at 60 to 90% rather than the average of 6 to 10% absorption you would get with a CBD oil. Because our bodies are made up of mostly water and this is a fluid, it's highly absorbable so that you're getting 500% more nutraceuticals per dose. We also have this available in our CBD spray as well as a muscle rub with all kinds of botanicals. You're going to absolutely love it.
Check it out, Brainiacs. MatrixMinds.live/CBD. The CBD I use. Feel free again. Feel alive again. And now back to the show. Brainiacs, no doubt, please, if you have enjoyed tonight's podcast, every subscription that you guys get, give it to someone else. If you don't have it yourself, get it. You think someone else would like it? Please, give them the subscription. Everything here is free. You guys know that. This broadcast is 100% supported by you, the viewer, the listener. So, nevertheless, we appreciate you. I just want you to know that. So, everything adds up. One subscription at a time. You guys help us make this what it is. It keeps us going here. So once again, everybody, take care of yourselves. Have a good weekend, and we will catch you here on the next time around. Be good, everybody.